Sweet. It filled up, so.
Nice. Let's go.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the You Know Ball podcast. I am your host, Troll Bro Dude, and once again, we are going to talk about our favorite topic in the world today, our favorite thing to discuss, which is the most valuable player in the NBA, which...
Closely followed by racism, which we are both very well equipped to comment on. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And this is something that I feel like, because we've been doing this since the beginning of the season, that I think we had a conversation about MVP in December, and I was like, it's just way too early to discuss this. And because we've now been doing it, because HP basketball has just infiltrated the minds of everyone, we now have to talk about this year round.
Has he infiltrated everyone, or is he patient zero for MVP of brain disease?
He might be.
He might be the Typhoid Mary of
he might be the Rudy Gobert of MVP psychosis.
Yeah, exactly. He is the Rudy Gobert.
All right, so before we get into that, we're gonna draft another team on Underdog Fantasy. Use the promo code SLOP, that's SLOP, to get a $100 deposit match today. We also have some other stuff coming up with them for the playoffs. Some cool things that we're going to be doing uniquely just with Underdog. The only things that you can do on there, like their best ball that they're doing right now, aka the dance, where you can draft a playoff team, specifically players that you think are going to go far into the playoffs. You can draft a team right now up until the start of the playoffs. So we're going to be doing one of those next week. But for tonight, we're doing the Thursday night. It's kind of a lame slate tonight. Not a lot of great games on, to be honest. So we're just going to pick based on the gut feeling that we have on these hoopers. The other day, we didn't win on the one that we did, but I did 2 tickets that night, and I won on the other one, so I'm taking credit for that.
So what Troll's saying is that I'm dog shit.
It was Sam's fault because he had me draft Aaron Fox, who was questionable, and then they replaced him with Michael Porter Jr., who did nothing.
Okay, so by the way, who we should take here?
Mikal Bridges. No, Mikal Bridges.
You think
Mikal Bridges has been hooping, and Giannis is out. So I'm going to go with Mikal Bridges there. He's been incredible recently, dude.
He's been great, yeah.
Sixers fans were already pissed about the fact that we traded him, but now it's like someone put it perfectly, and they said that if Mikal Bridges continues on this trajectory, Zaire Smith is going to be a Jeopardy answer one day.
Oh yeah, that's so true.
It's fucking tough, dude. It's just tough.
I'm sure.
I mean, I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure Zaire is doing well. He last played in the tournament last summer, which I
think we need Jalen here, by the way.
We go Jalen Brunson.
Brunson, yeah.
He is questionable. He hasn't played the last 2 games.
Okay, maybe not.
So maybe I think we need to go with the merchant. I think we need to go with the stocks fake merchant, Jaren Jackson Jr.
Losses don't count against you in Underdog Fantasy. So we can draft Grizzlies.
Exactly.
Without any problem. Yeah. I always forget about that. I just,
Yeah. It would actually, Underdog encourages you to cheat. So Jaren Jackson Jr. is really
he's good. Yeah. He's good at cheating. Luckily their big, who's actually good, is going to be out for the rest of the season, so he can continue to put up meaningless stats for his team.
Is your Grizzlies hatred really rooted in the fact that they jumped up to the second pick that one year and the Celtics didn't get the pick, and then it turned into Romeo Langford the next year or that year?
I was just so annoyed with I was just so annoyed the small bean drafting team shit is just too annoying to me. I could see coming from a mile away that they were never going to trade anyone of consequence. I'm actually shocked that they traded Desmond Bane, but they traded Desmond Bane for another draft pick. So it was
Desmond Bane?
Not Desmond Bane. I'm sorry.
D'Anthony Melton. Right? Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I had Desmond Bane on the mind because he was just.
I was like, they traded Desmond Bane.
Yeah. Well, a team traded Desmond Bane.
No team would ever trade Desmond Bane.
Traded the pick. They had the pick that was Desmond Bane, and then they traded him. Luckily, it wasn't for the absolute worst fucking player who's been on the team in the last 10 years. A man who is literally suing the league right now.
Let's go. Let's go. All right, so we got a few guys on the board here. We're coming up. We have Jalen Brunson is still on the board. So basically what happens is with Underdog is when you draft and you pick a guy and they're out with injury, they just replace them with whoever the best available is, which can work to your benefit. But when all right, Brunson went, so we don't even have to make that choice. But this is about the range where you pick a guy who's injured because there is the upside that he plays and he actually gets you the points. But now we're picking from, we're up in one pick. We got Klay Thompson, our boy Şengün, Paolo Banchero, Brooke Lopez, Kelly Oubre.
I'm just like trying to look at high scoring games.
Brooke Lopez went. Should we take
like
Klay? Şengün? Against the Pacers, 100%.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
dude, that Sixers Pacers game the other night, dude, the pace in that game, no pun intended, but the Pacers pace is legitimately it's basically like a rec league game. Like no one plays defense. It's up and down and up and down. And I think Embiid scored 43. Halliburton had 40. Dude. At halftime, they had like 150 combined points.
That's crazy.
Their games are just absolutely insane.
We're in a lobby with J Kid MVP 05, and I don't care if we win. We need to beat J Kid MVP
05. Did Jason Kidd ever finish? Speaking of MVP, he had to have finished top 3 in one of those net seasons.
I think he did.
He had to.
Third sounds right.
All right, we can still get Klay here, by the way. I think we take Klay.
Yeah, against Memphis. Yeah.
Oh, he's going to be motivated. The way that they've been talking shit recently.
I guess that's true. Yeah.
With Dylan Brooks, Draymond basically clowning him.
Steph's still out, right?
What's that?
Steph's still out, right? Yeah, I haven't heard.
No, Steph's back. He played back 2 nights ago. Okay. And they gave up like 135 points to the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Nice.
I'm sure you heard Zach talk about it on his podcast, but their record, they're basically the closest thing to that year when the Sixers, 2019-2020 Sixers, were like, they're very good at home, and then they're like the worst team in the league on the road.
Yes, yeah. They
have 7 wins on the road all year, I think. That might be wrong, but I'm fairly certain they have 7 wins on the road.
That was correct, 6 days ago. So unless they have a road win.
No, they have not. They've won at home and they've lost on the road again. They lost in Oklahoma City the other night. And people were bringing up the Draymond clip where he was saying it's so hard. It's easy to get motivated when you play Giannis and LeBron and whatever, but when it's the Oklahoma City Thunder, he literally said the Oklahoma City Thunder on a Tuesday night, I can't get up for that game. And then they got killed by Oklahoma City on Tuesday night. So it is, that's kind of basically every conversation I feel like when we have on this podcast comes back to they need to shorten the season by 10 to 15 games.
We all agree. Everyone, I wanted to, someday I'm going to actually do research and look at snapshots of if you ended this season at game 65, how much the standings would really change. I think that it well for the Grizzlies it would certainly change because they're best. They've now lost Ja Morant, Steven Adams. How many players have they? Are they Brandon Clark? But then you'd just be missing these guys in the playoffs.
True. That's a good point, actually. Yeah. So it wouldn't change the overall outcome, but Kevin Durant would probably be out for the first round right now.
Yeah. So. He'd probably miss the whole playoffs. Isn't he out for a pretty substantial amount of time?
They don't know yet. They said they're hoping that it's not a grade 2 sprain. All right, we already drafted Buddy Hield with the last pick because that's another Pacers pick. I want
Franz
high scoring. Franz is the guy here.
Yeah.
And then that is it for our team. So our squad ended up being, hold on one second. Let me pull up the squad. So our squad ended up being Mikal Bridges, Jaren Jackson Jr., Alperen Şengün, Klay Thompson, Buddy Hield, and Franz Wagner. I'm feeling good about this one. I'm feeling better about this one than I did about the one the other night.
If De'Aaron Fox had played, we would have won the other night.
We would have. We would have put. Well, I won $10 on the other one, so not that far off from 6,000 if you think about it. So. So let's get into the actual.
I only swing for the fences. I'm not a coward.
Exactly.
I only go for overall wins.
Exactly. That's why
just win my group. I'm trying to win nationally.
Exactly.
Mr. Worldwide. Pitbull. Dollar.
Let's go. All right, so let's get into the conversation today that I'm sure everyone is very excited to have, which is the MVP conversation in March. A little bit closer to when we actually should be talking about the MVP. I think this is the part of the season where, after the All-Star break, before March Madness starts, is like this is the last competitive stretch we usually get until the playoffs. And it feels like everyone has fully, as I said before, we've gone full psycho mode now, and the narrative for any player, any fan base, has just become completely insufferable at this point. But I guess my question for you is, I've been on the record. If you subscribe to the Patreon, I actually said a week ago, I don't think Embiid should win MVP, because I think that the team has been too good without him for him to be the MVP. And then he had the best offensive week of the season. He absolutely destroyed Rudy Gobert and the Timberwolves the other night. He had a great game offensively against the Pacers. He's been incredible, to be honest, ever since I said that. So I think that it's about as even as a race as you could get right now with Jokic, Embiid, and Giannis. But what do you make of the this last week where JJ Redick basically called out Kendrick Perkins on First Take for things that a lot of people that you don't want on your side are agreeing with him on. Let's just put it like that. The Clay Travises of the world, the straight up alt-right people, basically saying that Kendrick Perkins is pushing a narrative that Jokic is only in the MVP race because he's white, which I think we all can agree is not the case. I think that we all think that Jokic has a very good case for MVP. But the thing that Perkins has been talking about, and the thing that the media at large has been doing, is the hypocrisy of what we've talked about for months, how they were hypocritical with the Giannis thing, how Giannis didn't win anything, and by the third year, he was basically disqualified by the media because of that. And the fact that, it does feel like the goalposts are constantly moving with Jokic. Last year it was, well, he has no help. Now it's this year, they have the best team. Yeah. And it doesn't really feel like there's any sort of consistency in the argument. It's always just, well, here's what the stats say, here's what the advanced stats say, and he's the best. And if you argue with that, you're just completely wrong.
Yeah, I mean, well, because I think the root of this is that Jokic is, by and large, the MVP by all quantifiable measures, right? And that is the thing that people lean on the heaviest in arguments, right? Like your Vorps and your Schnorps, to put the, use the Zach Lowe terminology, where there are numbers, and what one number bigger, there you go, that guy's better, and so boiling down basketball to that has been kind of the North Star that a large part of the NBA community has sort of looked for, you know what I'm saying? Because that's the thing with basketball, and I think by and large this big back and forth between the analytics community and the scouts and the eye test people and stuff like that, is you are, at the end of the day, we are talking about a game that has 5 guys on a floor. It's not broken up the same way that say baseball is, where when a guy steps into the box, there are only 5 outcomes that can realistically happen. There is a smoother movement. There are things that blend together. There is all these variables that cannot really be accounted for, and you have the analytics community trying to quantify them as best as possible. Now, in the defense of the analytic community, a lot of them understand that there's no such thing as a one catch-all number, but they still, a lot of their numbers do at the end of the day measure the same types of things. You know what I'm saying? But just because we do not have, the player tracking, they're trying to use player tracking and some of the other things to get more advanced numbers, which is where you get into stuff like cleaning the glass and some of these more sophisticated numbers and things that are coming up. But I think what ends up happening here at the end of the day is what is making people so insane, is you have 2 people talking completely different languages to each other. Yeah. And that is the realm of the MVP discussion, because I think what everyone is trying to, I think it is I've made the Giannis comparison before, just because I think it's absurd, especially with Zach, because I just cannot get over the complete dissonance with Zach, because I remember thinking how weird it was that he was so dismissive of Giannis, and now to have him be on the completely opposite side.
Sure.
I mean, and in his defense, he's probably more on the right side now. I just thought it was crazy he was saying that about Giannis like back in the day. But I think that is what it is at the end of the day, and why this discussion gets so toxic is because people are essentially saying different things to each other when we're talking about the MVP. You have to, because at the end of the day, it is a value judgment by one person, and that is you. You are the person making the value judgment. And so when you're trying to explain this to other people, you know, if you lack the language to explain to people what you feel and what you're seeing, you know, you're going to go to the analytics. And when you go to the analytics, Jokic pops out by and large. You know, he's got the VORP and the Schnorp and the everything. Is there any number that Jokic is not like MVP in?
I think that he leads in every analytical number. Yeah. I think it's a Raptor and BPM and EPM. Now the gap between him and, let's say, Embiid is not massive in a stat like EPM. Right. It's like within 1 point of whatever that metric means. I don't know what the fuck it means.
Right.
Which is why I try not to use these stats all that much, because I don't really understand the large majority of them. I do know that BPM heavily weighs certain things based on, for example, if a big is really good at passing and he gets assists, he essentially gets more credit for that than a point guard would. Mm-hmm. Because the way that metric is weighted is heavily towards players that, you know, generally speaking, centers usually don't have offense run through them as much as Embiid and Jokic do. Like these two guys are kind of an outlier for the modern NBA. And one of the things that my issue with that is like Jokic is going to win in that stat every single year if that's the case, because he's probably the best passer in the NBA, right? He is the best passer in the NBA right now. And if you have that and you have a big like that, it automatically disqualifies Giannis, Luka, Embiid, anyone else who could possibly do it just because of what's ever built into this metric, right? Well, I guess where I'm starting to lose my mind a little bit with this is like, I feel like this award has already been decided for 2 months. And I can't sit here and let's be honest. It's really been since Tatum fell off. Yeah, because Tatum was the best player on the best team.
Hurt. Yeah, it was like, exactly. Yeah, once Doncic and Curry got hurt and Tatum fell off the map, that was it.
Yes,
I think, you know.
And I think Jokic has arguably, I think he has a better case this year than he did last year. Yeah. I think that he has a better case arguably than he did 2 years ago. So I don't have a problem with the individual in a vacuum giving him the MVP. What I do have a problem with is saying that there is not a double standard for Nikola Jokic. There absolutely is. Yeah. The fact that the biggest podcaster, Bill Simmons, who has a award vote for MVP, is going on his podcast and calling him his personal hero and weird shit. It's insane to act like there isn't racial bias when it comes to this. It is, because it's like, and I'm not even just saying Jokic. It's not Nikola Jokic's fault. He's an amazing basketball player. Mm-hmm. The thing is that the media has been looking for the great white hope forever. They've been doing this forever with basketball. And it's not just Jokic. They tried to do it with Luka 2 years ago until it became obvious that Jokic was better. Bill was doing this with Jokic 2 years ago. Perfect example. He called Luka's assists real and James Harden's assists fake.
Yes.
Recently on a podcast, he said that, well, Jokic's defense isn't like James Harden's because, you know, Harden gave up on defense 5 years ago. Fucking bullshit. Every player fucking throughout the regular season is taking nights off. Even the best defenders do. Joel Embiid's a really good defender. When he wants to lock in, he can. He takes off given nights. Mm-hmm. Jokic was a joke last night defensively. He will never get called out on this by the media because of the fact that he has this stature. And he is, in my opinion, I think that he is very solidly, if not 1, 2 for MVP this year. And there is an argument for every guy. But to act like this bias doesn't exist is legitimately insane to me. And you can never, ever, ever criticize him because of the numbers. But the numbers are what are all require context. like that is my whole thing. They require context. We know that all like if there is no point in any of this, then let's just let the computers pick who win MVP. Let's just let them pick. None of us just let the computers pick.
Yeah, I mean, like, so you have a lot there that I want to go through one by one. But because I think that, a lot of people are going to kind of like roll their eye, because I think there is a certain segment of people who are rolling their eyes at the idea that it's, that Jokic is getting buoyed by, racial bias. And I think that one of the, because as we both just said, we both think he's a deserving MVP,
Yes, I actually think he probably is the MVP this season in a vacuum.
I would agree. And I would agree. He probably is the MVP this season. However, Stephen A. Smith voice. However, but I think that the larger point that everyone is missing, and I think that, even if you want to kind of dumb down or kind of remove the malice of this, Nikola Jokic is unique and is different from most MVPs. He is pardon it, he's a heavier guy who does not look like he is a little schlubby.
Yeah.
He is extremely European looking, which is not the case for many MVPs in history. And by that token, by being different, that is something that the media is going to enjoy now. Now, you might notice that one of those is race. You are different. You are not, because predominantly through the history of the MVP in the NBA, you are not a white person if you're winning the NBA. However, they do win it at a higher thing. Do we really think Steve Nash racial bias did have anything to do with Steve Nash's MVPs?
Bill Simmons was one. Yeah. Bomani Jones had a thread this week about how the person who actually brought this up when Steve Nash won his back-to-back MVPs was Bill Simmons, saying, is he not getting preferential treatment over Kobe and Shaq because he is white? And it's like, it's not to say that these guys aren't legitimate MVPs. It's not to say that there's any shame in even coming up as the runner-up for MVP or the third place. You're still one of the best players in the NBA, one of the top guys, and that's what you should aim for every year. But to sit back and act like there's literally nothing that could possibly, no, there's no way that there could ever, of course there is. Anyone who makes a podcast or who is a writer for the NBA, there is a certain group of people that might see themselves in Jokic more. Like, it is just true. Yes. And it's like, it's not to say that Jokic can't be the best player. It's not to say that Jokic isn't a deserving MVP. It's to admit that these biases do exist. And it's not to say that it's just over Joel Embiid and Giannis Antetokounmpo. It's to say that in general, that this is the case. And I think, look, I think that later in this episode, we're going to do a pressure rankings for, who is under the most pressure heading into these playoffs. And to no fault of his own, Jokic is going to be under it because he is the media fanboy. Like, he is the number one media guy, and all media loves him. And he is a basketball savant. He's,
Well, I was just going to say, question. I mean, do we think, I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but something I just want the audience to think about. Do we really think that, who do we think is going to get more shit if they lose in round 2 this year? Nikola Jokic or Joel Embiid?
To me, it feels like it could. What's weird about that conversation is that I feel like all of this is setting up for both of them to get slandered in a way. I know that sounds weird because I'm coming from a Sixers fan that I have more invested in Joel's success, but this feels like a big year for both of them, I guess I should say. And I actually think from the public at large, Jokic would obviously get slandered more because I think he's going to win the award, to be totally frank. And I think that anyone who wins 3 straight awards and doesn't get to the finals is going to get a ton of slander. Yeah. But also Joel not making the conference finals again would be a huge mark on him regardless of, what happens with the MVP.
Yeah. Also, just one more thing before we move on, just in terms of the racial component too. There is a well-known thing with eugenicists and people of a certain inclination, people who say came out of the woodwork once this became a national talking point to support the Jokic side. There was a natural inclination on that side of things to run to pseudosciences and sort of fake numbers. And I'm sorry, but there's a lot of analytics and stuff like that is
incredibly racist. It's like
kind of echoes that shit. Like, I'm sorry.
Have you ever heard of the bell curve? There's a reason why this is a very heated topic for a lot of people, and I don't think that this is anything to do with Jokic himself. I don't think this has anything to do even with his supporters in general that are just fans of the Nuggets and want to see their guy win. I think that the JJ Redick thing is everyone that knows this podcast knows I can't fucking stand JJ Redick. I think he's one of the most just completely phony fucking. I just cannot stand him. I think he's a pod save America ass analyst. I don't need to hear his fucking Brooklyn yuppie bullshit on anything.
It's also, I would sit this one out, Chief, if I got caught even accidentally saying a slur. How do
you accidentally say a slur? I'm sorry. They're asking you about Chinese people and you say a Chinese slur?
You say that slur? Like, come on,
you think that's just like a thing you can throw out there? Yeah. You should sit this one out, bro. It's not to say that I don't think that JJ has good opinions on basketball and that he's a decent analyst and that some of the things that he does, it's to say that
not the hill I would die on, I guess.
You're not the one. I'm sorry, dude. Exactly. You ain't the one. I'm so sick of this
dude. Messenger for this.
Yeah. But also it not in fairness to JJ, but just in fairness to the argument, Perk gets on television and says wrong things all the time. Literally always. I love Perk as a personality, but Perk has apparently deleted a few things that he basically just went on and was just riffing and lied about things. So it's not even to say I'm even defending Kendrick Perkins. I don't care about Kendrick Perkins.
Someone getting on a podcast and lying about facts and timelines to defend an opinion that they had of themselves. By the way, we're deleting the last episode. It's not because I got caught saying anything.
Look, we all do this. We talk so much that there's just going to be times where we're either misremembering or getting things wrong. It just happens.
I want to point out, all of those I was off by 1 year.
Yes.
Come
the
on.
Bulls were better a year later. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The Bulls won 60 games a year later.
Sure.
Anyway. We're getting off topic.
So I just want to say last thing here before we move on from the MVP thing. Yeah. I think that overall there's this thought, right, that Jokic has had no help. He's kind of gotten to where he's gotten by himself. He hasn't had all-star teammates. He hasn't had all-defense teammates. He hasn't really had the best context or circumstance for himself. And I don't even necessarily disagree with that. I think he's actually done a lot for someone that doesn't have a ton of talent around him at all times. I think this Nuggets team has a lot of talent on it. And I think that it's a joke that Bill Simmons can get on there and call Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Aaron Gordon his toys, which was gross to me. Yeah. But there is Tom Haberstraw, who I think generally does some pretty good work, tweeted out a graphic today that had, if you didn't see this graphic, folks, it was basically, it looks like this, and it shows all of the players that have played with all-stars and all defense players that have won MVPs in the first 8 years of their career. And Jokic was the only one he could find that didn't have any teammates who were on all defense or all-star. And this is where it annoys me a little bit, because it's the context is completely missing here. Above him on this was Kevin Garnett, who, do you know who his two all-star teammates were in his career?
Stephon Marbury, I would guess.
No. He had Wally Szczerbiak and Sam Cassell. Yeah. Each individually had one who somehow we didn't include. I think we might have included Szczerbiak in the Mickey Mouse all-star thing.
So is this all-stars, they had the all-star season alongside him when he won MVP? Okay.
Yes. Okay. So it's actually first 8 seasons. So for example, Magic Johnson has a ton because he played with James Worthy and he played with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And of course, so his is going to be stacked up on top of each other. Larry Bird has a lot because he played with Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish and whoever. Yeah. And there were, as I said, Kevin Garnett had 2 seasons of all-star teammates. Wally Szczerbiak, who you tell me whether Wally Szczerbiak deserved that all-star nod. You tell me if Sam Cassell, who literally was a good player but never made an all-star team outside of the year he played with Kevin Garnett.
Well, the other stupid thing about this is a lot of times, like, if you had a good team, those guys just made all-stars. Like, look at the Hawks. Like
yes,
just that just happens. And
or even Klay Thompson with the Warriors. Like,
well, I mean, that's the other thing about now is if you win MVPs now, there's just a lot of good guys in the league.
Yes.
You're just less likely to have a good guy on your league. The fact was there were only 10 good guys in the league back then.
Exactly.
So,
are you telling me that Jamal Murray is worse than Wally Szczerbiak?
No.
He's not.
He's not.
And then also on here, Westbrook had a ton, of course, because he played with KD for the first few years of his career. Yeah. But the year he won MVP, he had no teammates on that list. He had no teammates that had any accolades that season. He was the only one.
Yeah, and he won. This is why that's what I'm saying. This is disingenuous then, because it's like not the season that you won the MVP.
Yeah, it's just the first 8 years of your career that you have played with. You have played with an all-defense player or an all-star. Another example on here.
They give LeBron 5, and it's like he literally lost MVPs because he added all-star teammates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he had his two all-star teammates on here were Zydrunas Ilgauskas, who we talked about on the Mickey Mouse all-star team. Not a legitimate all-star in either of the years he made it, really. No. And Mo Williams, who also was only an all-star because he was on LeBron's team. If he was playing for a random team, he would have not made the all-star. LeBron made their team that good. And then last thing here, Mutombo was traded halfway through the year to the Sixers, the year that Allen Iverson won MVP. He played 26 games with Allen Iverson. And if you look at Allen Iverson's, his looks like he played with, basically, he had a stacked team because of this. When in reality, he was just playing with Mutombo for 26 games the year that he won MVP. It did not really have, he probably would have won MVP if they traded for Mutombo or not. So I just think that I constantly see shit like this. And it's like, it's not to say that Jokic isn't doing a lot with not a ton. Like, he doesn't have a super team or a stacked team around him. But I feel like we're not giving credit to guys like Jamal Murray, who have had really good careers. They just happen to play in the Western Conference with Steph Curry and Luka Doncic and Devin Booker and guys, Donovan Mitchell until this year. Like, it's just a stacked league, especially at the guard in the Western Conference. It drives me absolutely nuts. So, if you enjoyed this part of me losing my actual mind over the MVP and you want to hear the rest, we're going to talk about a few things on the Patreon part of the episode. We're going to read an old Bill Simmons column, and then we are also going to draft the players, coaches, and executives under the most pressure heading into this playoff. So if you enjoy that, link is in the description. You can sign up there. And you'll get a bunch of other stuff too. So check it out.